Good morning, colleagues. It's 10:02, but we'll give some extra 3 minutes for other colleagues to join us, and then we'll start. So expect to hear my voice at the dot of 10:05 a.m. Good morning, good afternoon from wherever you may be joining us this morning. Today is 25th of June, 2024. And we are back on our session, the one always organized by Sterling One Foundation and the Nigerian Network of NGOs. And today we'll be talking about a very good topic that concerns all of us, resource mobilization techniques and strategies. And today we've got an A-list, as we've always done, of speakers that will take us through that journey of how we can mobilize resources, what techniques we can use, and what strategies. I have joining me Dr. Mina Ogbanga, an associate professor, Port Fellow, EADI alumni with 23 years nonprofit experience, and she has expertise also in the field of sustainability. She's one of our speakers this morning. And joining her is Mr. Adetunde Ademefun. He has 18 years experience in development management and advocacy with expertise in inclusive development and disability inclusion. He has also managed projects supported by European Union, DFID, OSF, and the big donors in the Nigerian donor landscape. Of course, I have Mrs. Beju Bekwe, the CEO of Sterling One Foundation, who is also joining us this morning. There are 41 of us on the call at this time, and it's time that we started this conversation. It promises to be very exciting, and I'm sure we would all learn one or two or three techniques and strategies that can help us to be able to do the work that we do very well, especially in ensuring that we meet our vision and our mission. My name is Oyebisi Babatunde Oluche, and I work with the Nigeria Network of NGOs. Together, for the next 90 minutes or thereabouts, we would listen to each other, enjoy each other, and also learn a lot. And having said that, let me now welcome for the next 15 minutes some a presentation from the Sterling One Foundation CEO, and also take our brief welcome as well. Madam Peju Ibekwe, you have our attention, please.
Thank you so much, Mr. Oyebisi. Please, good morning, good afternoon, good evening to all our distinguished guests that have joined us from different parts of the country and the globe. Thank you so much for joining us on this session of our NGO Capacity Building Initiative. We are so glad to be partnering with the Nigeria Network of NGOs and Giving.ng, our partner platform on this session. I'm going to go right into it. Today, we will be speaking about resource mobilization techniques and strategies. And I'm going to take us through first, introduce us to who we are at the Sterling One Foundation, a few points on why we should mobilize resources, and then major success factors. So, who are we at Sterling One Foundation? Sterling One Foundation is a registered not-for-profit organization established to serve as a vehicle for positive social impact across critical sectors of the economy. And over the years, we've executed various initiatives and programs with our partners. Specifically, the NGO development series started since 2021 as a quarterly initiative aimed at building the capacity of players within the development ecosystem in Nigeria, with a view to helping them to deliver on their mandate optimally and sustainably. We support the ecosystem via various initiatives, but for the purpose of this session, I will be highlighting just three. And they are Sterling Cares, Giving.ng, and our private, public, and development sector convening, which is the Africa Social Impact Summit. So starting with Sterling Cares is Africa's first free banking solution for the nonprofit ecosystem. So if you're a not-for-profit organization in the room and you do not have the Sterling Cares solution, I might say you might be doing yourself a demerit because it is free banking forever. So you never have to pay charges for your financial transactions. We believe the work you're doing is too unique, is too great, is too significant for it to be charged. And this is a partnership between Nigeria Network of NGOs, led by the able Mr. Oyebisi, and Sterling Bank, one of our financial institutions partners. And then we also have Giving.ng. For more information on Sterling Cares, you can check www.sterling.ng/cares. So you can start the process and also conclude the process online. We have Giving.ng, which is the continent's first free crowdfunding platform that also provides grants. So we have quite a number of people and organizations that have benefited from the grants provided by Giving.ng. And we have the Africa Social Impact Summit, a pioneer gathering of leaders from the private, public, development sector, civil society, towards working together and accelerating the achievement of the Sustainable Development Goals. So I mentioned earlier, you can get more information on Sterling Cares at www.sterling.ng/cares. And there's no need for any initial or minimum deposit balance. All I believe they need is some fee to be able to take care of your search, which is a regulatory requirement, no transaction fees forever, and a number of other benefits. And for Giving.ng, you can get the opportunity to access up to £1 million in grants. And yes, I'm sure most of us know our Proco doctor who always supports us with health education. Interestingly, this was a partnership we did sometime to provide resources for health treatment for beneficiaries in the hospital that could not afford their health treatment. And of course, to be able to qualify for the grants must be within health, education, food security, and renewable energy sectors. You should have up to 100 donors on your project, or 50 donors if you're a member of the Nigerian network of NGOs. Definitely, we will provide due diligence checks because transparency is extremely important. And then the beneficiary has to provide detailed regular reporting. And when I say beneficiary, I mean the fundraiser on the platform, not the final beneficiary in the hard to reach areas or in a rural community.
This is a big way. I think your video is muted. We're losing you. Hello, Mrs. Ibekwe, can you hear me? We are losing you. We lost you already. If you can hear me, maybe you can move a bit away so that we can have you back on the session. Can I confirm that Dr. Mina Ogbanga is on the call? Yes, I can see her, and I already have Mr. Adetunde Ademef already. Let's just give.
Hi, how are you?
Good to hear your voice, Dr. Mina Ogbanga. Let's give.
Good to see you and anybody else.
Thank you. Yeah, let's give Mrs. Ibekwe some 2-3 minutes to join us back. But as she has said, if you're on this call today and you have not opened a Sterling Cares account, you are sleeping on this. Please wake up and go get your Sterling Cares account. The beauty of Sterling Cares account is it focuses on helping us as non-profits to meet our vision and mission, where bank charges are taken off. And if you're an organization that deals with a large volume of transactions, you know what that means to your bank balance if those transactions are waived. So I would encourage you that you please open a Sterling Cares account. This was an account that Sterling already gave to us as non-profits. So they've democratized giving in such a way that once you open this account voluntarily, then you begin to get some level of support from Sterling Bank. It is called Sterling Cares account. I think the connections are still not friendly today with Mrs. Ibekwe. We might have to then hit the ground running. We've got very two key experienced speakers this morning, and I've read through their very long profile, but I've given you 20 words version of that profile. At some point, you would have access to be able to read the profiles as we progress. I'll now yield the floor to my very good sister, Dr. Mina Ogbanga, who is an associate professor, a Ford Fellow, and has 23 years experience, in the nonprofit sector. Over to you, Dr. Mina Ogbanga, and you have the next 20 minutes to walk us through mobilization techniques and strategies. I would go off the video, and then once you see my video come up, know that your time is rounding up, and I would ask that you please close at the dot of 20 minutes. Over to you, Dr. Mina Ogbanga.
Hello, everybody. Good morning. And I want to be sure you can see my screen. I don't know yet. Can you all see my screen? I want to be sure you can all see my screen. First of all, I cannot continue without. Hello, can you all hear me? Yeah, ABC, am I being heard?
So my apologies, I think
We can hear you, Dr. Banga, live.
Am I being heard?
Yes, ma'am, we can hear you.
Am I being heard?
Yes, we can hear you, Dr. Banga.
Oh, excellent, excellent. You got me there. I was wondering if you could. I am particularly very excited about today, and I want to first of all thank the CEO for this opportunity and Gideon, the entire team, as well of the Sterling One. And I can't even stop but say also thanks to our moderator who is here in person, the most traveled CSO rep in the whole world. So this is my way of saying I'm glad to be here, and it's an honor to me to share with you what you do on a daily basis, but to bring to mind that we should always have this strategy of resource mobilization at all times at the fore, so that we don't lose sight on our sustainability plan. So on that note, I want to thank everybody who has been able to make it to this call, and I hope we'll be able to share some very productive ideas and be able to come up with some strategic ways to making our organization sustainable. In the country that we are in now, a key thing that we can't run away from is the fact that sustainability is a priority, to organizations that are in need of it. Just a second. We're looking at resource mobilization techniques and strategies, accessing and leveraging international donor grants for sustainability. And it's my humble self looking at this topic with you. And we're going to be talking about the key outlines like the introduction. What are we going to be looking at? Overview of these international grants. We're going to be looking at the importance of sustainability grant funding, and then researching and identifying donors. With people I'm talking with people who are experts in the field, but sometimes we also need to come to remembrance of these key issues and highlights, and then building relationships and partnerships, and of course, developing a strong grant proposal, that will enable us get support. Then demonstrating impact and sustainability and establishing partnership and collaboration. That is key. Some of the another key part of this outline is the organizational staying informed and flexible, and then diversifying for effective communication and reporting, as well as so. But we are going to wrap up with some real life opportunities that exist, and then we want to see how everybody can take advantage of those real life opportunities. So accessing and leveraging international donor grants for some of us here is a bread and butter to many. For others, mid-level, and for others, they really want to learn more. So we have a mix of people right now, if I'm not mistaken. Accessing and leveraging international donor grants for sustainability is a critical endeavor, for organizations and initiatives dedicated to addressing pressing global challenges. You see that this is just unavoidable. In an interconnected world where, issues such as poverty, climate change, health disparities, and education inequalities transcend boundaries, you see that international donor grants play a pivotal role in funding innovative projects and initiatives that strive for positive change. So you see that as far as these problems, exist, so we also, both the donors and the recipients, think of innovative strategies to stay afloat also, and to serve their purpose at the end of the day to achieve a mutual goal. So it's for the benefit of the donor that they spend, and it's for the benefit of the donor also that they spend well. And it's also for the benefit of the recipient that they receive, and it's for the benefit of the recipient that they use it well. So you see that process continues as we address the core issues that we are faced with in Africa. Then we want to set the stage now for understanding the landscape of international donor grants. Highlighting their significance in promoting sustainable development efforts worldwide. You see, it provides an overview of the, guide's objective, and then outlines the key topics and strategies that will be explored in subsequent sections. So you see, it is just setting the stage. So let's have a look at this international donor grants. And without mincing words, hope we know, I'm sure we all know that accessing international donor grants is just one of the key funding sources. We also have local access as well, and a lot of things that come with working with government, working with local institutions, and working with subnational organizations. So that also come in. But now we're looking at the overview for international donor grants. For projects and programs aimed at addressing global challenges and promoting sustainability, because they're looking at things from the global point of view, providing local solutions to global issues, as well as local issues, and then global solutions, so that your solutions which you're providing are best practices and globally accepted. So these grants are provided by a diverse range of stakeholders. You see that there are different stakeholders that support this granting process at the international level, including like governments, international governments. You see that you can name them, the USAID of this world. You see them, there are sources, aid from the government, intergovernmental organizations. You have intergovernmental organizations, philanthropic organizations, corporations and non-governmental organizations. So understanding the landscape of international donor grants is essential for organizations seeking to access those resources effectively. So you need to understand the landscape. Why are some getting so many grants from or so much from international donors? Like you see, recently a partner, one of our partners, one of our NGOs, got a $4 million grant, some weeks back from a donor, and that was just basically because they were just at the right place at the right time, and then they submitted the right documents. So you see, you need to understand that landscape. $4 million for any donor is for any organization is not a small grant to receive. And just 2 months ago, there's also a published call now for $326 million grants that people that we are seeking for. And the $326 million grant is also in the open, but depending on who can access at any point in time. So you need to understand the international landscape, and you see that access to funding from the international space is not as terrifying as many may find it. So why do we bother about international granting? Importance of sustainability in grant funding. Sustainability in itself is a fundamental principle that underpins effective grant funding initiatives, you see, because at the heart of your request for funding is to continuously see your organization survive, is to continuously see your organization exist. I've been in this space for 24 years, and I've been working with people like BC and the rest who have been able to really, really access so much grants from the international world. And today, some organizations still remain actively performing their role. And this is because they've understood the granting landscape, and they've also seen ways in which to, access and support these projects that they intend to carry out. So sustainability is a key factor. It's a fundamental principle that underpins effective grant funding initiative, ensuring that projects and programs contribute to lasting positive change and long-term impact. You see, so incorporating sustainability considerations into your grant funded initiative is essential, for maximizing the benefits of donor investment and addressing complex and global challenges effectively. So when you're thinking granting, you're thinking sustainability, you're thinking innovation, and all those kind of things. So we dig deeper into the importance of sustainability in grant funding. And in the course of this conversation, if you have like real quick questions, you can let BC know, so that I know if I need to pause and just respond to them, or I just go through the whole document. So importance of sustainability in grant funding is very key. We're looking at organizations now. Look at the civil civic space and that there's need for resilience building, there's need for sustainability, there's need for organizations to be less vulnerable to the impact of these economic situations. So you see the importance of sustainability becomes key. One of them is long-term impact. Long-term impact, that's a key one. And then environmental stewardship, being able to provide that service in which you have set out to provide. Community empowerment, what area are you working in? Your sectoral focus is important. So that is another key importance of sustainability. Then economic viability, it keeps your organization afloat in such a way that you can decide to carry out a particular activity without fear that the donors or this one, because you've already had a good reservoir of resources. Then institutional strengthening, so in order to make it faster, because the whole idea of working with international donors is about working smart and not working so hard. You don't really need to kill yourself once you understand the environment very well. You need to just understand the environment and do the appropriate mapping. One of the key things you need to do is the researching and identifying of donors. And that is what I always call mapping. The donor mapping. I've learned, over time, you need to understand the donors and the donors that are in supporting your initiative. You need to align with donors who have like interests, like yours, mutual interests like yours. And then so researching and identifying potential donors is a crucial step, in accessing international donor grants for sustainability initiatives. This process involves like thorough investigation and analysis to identifying donors whose priorities, funding mechanisms, and geographic focus align with the goals and objective of your organization. It's very key, and I'll give you some key steps to consider. Right now, there's on different grants. Had I known what I know now, at this point is helping you to organizations are sustainable. So what are the key steps to define? I used to tell them everywhere I go that is the donor mapping. The donor mapping. Who is interested in me? Who am I interested in? What do we share? What do we have in common? So one of the things about researching and identifying donors is the fact that one, you need to access the donor landscape analysis. A lot of organizations help us do that prior. A lot of organizations help us to do that. A lot of organizations help us to do that. They help us to do this landscape analysis. Social media these days when created opportunities for civil society, then you have you prioritize the potential donors because not all of them can you work with at the particular time. So, and then you analyze the funding opportunities. And I think you go quickly to the $1 million grant. We need to build collaborations within the civil society organizations ourselves. We need to build alliances. I don't want to use the word cliques. It's very wrong. It's antisocial, and I don't use that. I feel there should be an enabling environment for this continuous engagement so that because no man is an island. You shouldn't work in isolation as a civil society organization. Men networking and partnership can give you exactly what you may have taken 20 years, 20 hours to search for. So leveraging on networking and partnership is very key. And that is one of the things that come out under that we can speak to under the researching and identifying donors. You need to do that. You be able to identify those, and you see a whole pot of organization. I'll give you so many lists and access links to organizations and current funding and sources. Then you need to ask yourself, do I need to take this next step? Are they in alignment with my vision? Then identify relevant donor organizations. Identifying relevant donor organizations is a critical step, in the process of accessing international donor grants. So now I'll give you a detailed work breakdown of how to identify this donor grants that align and donor organizations that align with your project goal and objectives. We're going to do that. In identifying these relevant donors, you need to define your project objectives and then focus. That some organizations, it's a bit archaic right now for an organization to do all the 17 goals in Nigeria as a country and in the world. If you're an organization working on all the 17 goals, then you need to do your own personal reflection. You need to understand your own personal strategy. So define your project objectives and focal area. So then you research your donor profiles and funding priorities in those areas that you have identified. Consider the type of donor you want to look out for, and then funding mechanism, because every donor has a funding mechanism. The donors that gave these our partners $4 million, some weeks ago, the strategy they used is different from the donor that is currently requesting for a call for proposal for $326 million. Right now, that is the ongoing call. There's one for $100,000. There's some for $50 million. It depends. And most of us here have already won those grants. This is just to scale up the information to say that more organizations can also win these grants, depending on how you get the information and how you work on these proposals. Access to donor eligibility and criteria. If you don't understand the criteria, the eligibility criteria from the donor, and you just delve in and dig deep, that you discover that you are wasting resources and time, human resources that NGOs barely have, then seek recommendations and referrals. So yes, you have gone a step, in identifying these donors. What next? You need to build relationship with donors. It applies both at all levels. Even in life, you need to identify ways of building and strengthening relationships. Those relationships, they matter. Sometimes relationships simply open the doors. Building strong relationships with donors also, in this case, is essential for organizations seeking to access international donor grants. And then you need to cultivate that trust, demonstrate the alignment with that donor priority. And then you establish open communication channels, which are very key to donor engagement. I can imagine a donor speaking from the donor point of view and the civil society speaking from the relationship interface between donors. So, that is, you get the both sides of the divide. Now, here is how to build relationship with donors effectively. We have already highlighted that researching the organization is key. Identifying the key contacts is key. If you get to know your organization better, engaging in networking opportunities is one of the platforms where you can access donors without having to go through too much of the bureaucracies and the protocols that can happen at some point. Then initiate outreach and relationship building opportunities. So you need to tailor your communication to suit the particular thing in which you want to work in, so that you can demonstrate impact and track record. Because if the donor sees you to do so many things, it does not give them the right impression of the organization. So building relationship with donors, the same way you build relationship with your partners and organization, is very key. And then you now know the donor, you now have the grant call. What next? You need to develop a strong grant proposal. You see, I'm so excited because a lot of organizations and institutions from the EU Act, if I mention one, they have gone a long way to strengthen organizational capacity, so that they can access resources. So a strong grant proposal is essential for securing funds from these international donors. A well-crafted proposal, could clearly articulate your organization's mission. Till today, as I speak, some organizations are 2 years old, 5, 10, 20, 50 years old, but they still are not clear on their mission, their vision, and the kind of strategies, they don't still demonstrate the alignment with project priorities, much less donor priorities. These things need to be clear, because a clear plan for achieving this process is very key. So steps to developing a strong grant proposal, because you have come this far, you've been able to do your mapping, you've been able to identify, then is it at the grant writing point that you now fall short? We wouldn't like that to happen. So part of this conversation is to encourage us all to step up our grant writing styles and grant writing opportunities. There are many ways also we can do that. One of the ways now is understanding the donor guidelines and priorities. Once you understand the donor guidelines and priorities, it's easier for you to align your activities and propose plan with it. And then and then you conduct your thorough needs assessment. Some people just go in and write proposal based on the fact that the donor said right on this topic. They have no initial idea, they've not done any mapping, they've not done any on the ground data. How do you get data? How do you get the data you put in your proposals if you've never had any prior baseline or anything conducted? It's very key for you to be clear in those things. So if one needs to write a proposal, it may be good to carry out, even if it's a rapid rural appraisal or understanding of that subject matter, so you can give a thorough needs assessment report, to justify your project for those who need to go to that extent. So develop a detailed project plan, and then you need to demonstrate organizational capacity and expertise. So demonstration of organizational capacity and expertise is very strategic. I'm coming from a journey. It's been a journey for me for 24 years. So I can imagine the mistakes, I can imagine the rising, I can imagine the stepping down, and I can imagine the re-rising. So you see that yeah, demonstrating organizational capacity is very key. Indeed, when they say experience is important, it's fine. You have a whole bunch of staff who don't even know the difference between proposal writing and report writing. Then you have tasks to do. So all these things, you need to build your capacity so that it also adds to organizational capacity and expertise, and develop, of course, a realistic budget. So then how do you demonstrate impact and sustainability, which is a key part? Demonstrating the potential impact, and long-term sustainability of your project, which you want to carry out, is crucial for securing this funding from the donors, from the stakeholders, because donors want to invest in initiatives that deliver meaningful results and create lasting positive change. It is in the donor's interest to spend money, but it's in the donor's interest to spend the money well, where you can at least have some strong impact. So it's very key for us to note that very well, that they are interested also in quality assurance. They're interested in all those things that we look out for in terms of resilience building and sustainability and also impact. So here are some strategies for effectively demonstrating impact and sustainability in your grant proposal, because we're at the point of granting now. Every grant proposal at this point, you see that we define clear objectives and outcomes, all these things. And remember that donors are unique in their own ways, in the sense that not every donor, no, we don't have a one size fits all for every donor, in the sense that every donor has its own peculiar framework and template sometimes to use. So you don't necessarily need to use it. Templates that will be presented by, in all the templates that will be presented by donors, you need to define your clear objectives and outcomes. You need to now establish baseline data and indicators, using your quantitative and qualitative measures. You need to employ monitoring and evaluation systems to making this work. And of course, engage stakeholders in evaluation, depending on the project that you want to carry out. This issue about success stories and case studies is very important. Storytelling is now taking the fall in a lot of donor reporting and donor expectations. So if you're able to tell a good story about what you have been able to do, it also helps to add to demonstrating your impact. Then in terms of establishing partnerships and collaborations. Establishing partnership and collaboration is essential for leveraging and networks, to enhance the impact and sustainability of your project. No single organization has 100% of all it will take to both carry out proposal, implement proposal. There are points where you may need to leverage on the skills of identify those potential partners, and how do you do that? You need to conduct a stakeholder analysis to be able to know who are those that can provide you feedback, constructive feedback, because sometimes civil society space, they have potentials for a lot of other things, so regard, establish clear objectives and expectations. And also sometimes when you engage people, so as to make sure that there's transparency and accountability, you may develop memorandum of understanding or partnership agreement, because I the societies are partnered with each other successfully, while some others, have had very huge challenges, that have affected and strained their relationships. So you need to foster effective communication and coordination at all times. So capacity building for grant management. Trust me, when an NGO says they're looking for a grant writer, it is as it is, a grant writer, because you discover that within the system, you may not have the time, the resources, and the ability to write the grants as many as you will have wished and to get them running. So one person will be the head, trying to get this whole bigger picture done, identifying who those donors are and doing the PRO and relationship building. But somebody has to get the job done in the real sense. So you have to build capacity as an organization for grant management. It's essential for organizations to seeking to effectively utilize and manage grant funding. So here are some strategies to strengthen both grant management capabilities and also grant writing capabilities. You need to understand the grant requirements, and then it's key for you to develop grant writing skills amongst ourselves. We take that thing for granted sometimes, and the EDs of different organizations find themselves being the ones walking around always writing these grants, when you can get a team to work with you on that. Then budgeting and financial management training is key, as well as M&E training and compliance and risk management. All these things help you with the capacity building for grant. So compliance comes in here as an organization now. Every organization now, as if you're a civil society and you've not heard the word compliance, accountability, and all those things, and then you need to check, because you need to do a self-check, a self-reflection, because this is the in thing, this is the new normal. Ensuring compliance and accountability is critical, for organizations managing grant-funded projects, to maintain transparency, uphold ethical standards, and then meet donor requirements. So, you'll be able to now see that here are some strategies, to enhance your compliance and accountability. Compliance issues are in the world of their own. It's a whole bouquet of communication on it in itself. But in summary, for you to be able to scale through a lot in terms of donor work and donor fund recipients, you have to be able to comply to certain things. And
Dr. Banga,
one
can
of the
you
things
close it up in 2 minutes?
okay, good. So something we need to look at is ensuring compliance. You need to understand your internal controls, from your policies and procedures to your risk management strategies. You need to understand donor requirements. You see, for you to enjoy the benefits, you need to understand donor requirements, and if you understand that, is critical to success in this field. And in understanding donor requirements, that is where the reviewing of the grant agreements and then capacity building on donor compliance comes in, as well as dedicated compliance officers, which you need to have on ground. And then, yes, we want to get donor grant, but you don't ever sit down and imagine that you depend on only one donor source. So you need to diversify funding. And I highlighted key strategies to diversifying funding. There are many strategies to help you diversify funding. And yes, you get one grant, it doesn't end there. Sustainability deals with staying informed and flexible. You need to stay informed and flexible, and that occurs through strategic networking. You need to be continually putting your ears to the ground for new information and opportunities. And then effective communication and reporting. So you got the grant eventually, you need to know how to communicate and report, that grant. Because of time, I will quickly communication and reporting is key. Note that each donor might have a strategic way in which they want their reporting and communications done. So again, compliance comes into play to make sure that we work in line with what the donor wants. So there's some current international donor grants going on right now. Right now, as we speak, the USAID grant is still on, and it has a max of $250,000. Some of our colleagues won the African Enterprise Challenge Fund. That was 5 million. They won the 5 million grant. The one that is really like it's a collaborative fund, and it's still open. It's $16 billion. It's from the USA, and it also has to do with cross collaboration. For that particular fund. The Center for International Practice is still giving a grant to NGOs now. At least they've increased their grant size from now $1 million to $5 million as well. Then the IMF is also giving grants currently, and that is 10 million for their business innovation. And then the United Nations Democracy Funds has been on forever. A lot of people here have won it. A lot of organizations here have won it. It is my hope that I and other organizations who haven't can win it. $300,000. And then the Michael and Susan Dell, that is a very interesting. One of our colleagues won the Michael and Susan Dell Foundation grant. It was $5 million. And then Peter Condi Foundation grant is $5 million as well. And then the Draper Rich Kaplan Foundation, which our partner won as well, is $5 million. So you see that these grants are readily available. These are 20 international grants above $1 million that we can win. The little ones that we are working in now is, you have the one that is on AXA Research Grant for those who are interested in research. What does this mean? It means that these are curated opportunities that people can explore, but every other person can also look into it. In conclusion, for me, in the realm of accessing and leveraging international donor grants, for sustainability, the journey is as intricate as it is rewarding. This process demands a multifaceted approach. You don't just sit in one straight jacket. It blends. It's a blending and meticulous research that needs to be done. Strategic relationship building needs to be done, and compelling proposal development needs to be put in place. So throughout this guide, for me, we've delved into the intricacies of mobilizing resources, navigating donor landscape, fostering sustainability, and ensuring compliance. in grant funding, and then from understanding donor priorities to crafting compelling narratives, and then fostering partnership. Each of these steps plays a pivotal role in the success of your endeavors. Ladies, as you navigate this landscape, I believe that
Yeah, I think we lost Dr. Mina Banga there, but
for
thank you so
society.
much.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much, everybody.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Dr. Mina Ogbanga, and thank you for walking us through the journey of how we can mobilize resources using grants and proposal writing as one of those strategies. Let's quickly jump to the next speaker, whom I had earlier told you that he has 18 years experience in development, management, and advocacy. His name is Mr. Adetunde Ademefu, and he would also be sharing his thoughts, insights, and also his experience on how, as nonprofits, we can mobilize resources, what strategies and techniques we can use. Mr. Ademefu, you have our attention for the next 20 minutes as well. Over to you, sir.
Good morning, sir, and good morning, everyone. I'm very pleased to be here, and very honored to be invited by the Sterling One Foundation. Please confirm you can hear me.
Loud and clear.
Fantastic. So, whilst I await the technical team to help me with my slide, I think I'm finding challenges in bringing it up from this way. I would like to quote Dr. Mina, and thank you, Dr. Mina, for that fantastic presentation. And she said, it is in the donor's interest.
Thanks, Tunde. Welcome. Good morning.
Thank you very much, Doctor. So I was trying to quote you because that's a fantastic premise for us to move on with this next section. Yes. Yeah. So you said it is in the donor's interest to spend money, but it is also in the donor's interest to spend the money well. So you see, this slide is about value for money. Value for money. One of the contexts for us as development practitioner is that we try to empathize. So if this is my money, how am I going to spend it? And what exactly am I driving towards to achieve if I have money to spend as my own money? And that's the context also for the grant enablers. So you have the value for money, which is in itself an emerging concept in country. So you see an expansion in terms of civic organizations being organized, a lot of movements being created, a lot of formalization of organizations to advance human rights. But in advancing towards securing grants, do we understand the concept of value for money? Next slide, please. So in terms of outline, next slide, please. We'll run through the definitions, we'll run through the dimensions of value for money, we'll run through the frameworks of value for money, and of course, challenges and what it is that we need to be very, very aware of. So please just run with me, please, Mr. Thank you so much. So value for money, as it's been highlighted here, it's a concept that defines how to maximize, please underline that, and sustain quality and equitable program, so project outcomes. I want to assume that for us all on this call, we understand the difference between programs and projects. And outcomes are those things that we immediately think about, or outputs rather, and outcomes are the things that we desire to see and of course impact for a given level of resources. This is very important. And at a given particular time. And why? Why this particular given time? It's very important because if you have, I love to be very practical. If you have a 1 million naira and you want to address the poverty indices for 130 million Nigerians who are multidimensionally poor, you are not being objective with yourself. if you begin to think about maximizing value for money, right? But then if you have a 1 million naira and you're thinking about contextualizing poverty alleviation for a 4-member family for 1 week, then we're talking. And that's what this definition is all about. And again, there's another definition by King's 2017. The value for money is an evaluation question about how well resources are being used, how well resources are being used, and whether the resources used or the resource use is justified. And of course, this is validating what I quoted from or by Dr. Mina. And again, that goes on and on. And you see, in all the definitions about value for money, it's about managing resources and the expectations that we have, and tallying these two concepts and context together for us to derive what it is that we need to achieve. This time around, it's not necessarily streaming from us as the enabler of that resources. Maybe we have a third party, and the interest of the third party is about how well these resources has been used. Next slide, please, so that we can move on. So as we move on, it's important also that we think about the pillars, right? Value for money, international development, and of course, the context of grant management. Who are the enablers of this international development? And what does it really mean to be in the vehicle of international development? So it's about the improving of lives of individuals worldwide. So when you talk about global instruments or global tools or global agenda like the Sustainable Development Goals, or maybe you talk about any kind of context for where I work and the enablers of disability rights, you see that when you talk about the provisions within the United Nations Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities, these are global instruments or global agreements by heads of nations to drive towards the fulfillment of rights of a particular set of persons. And this time around, if they are global, it's for all citizens, irrespective of where they are. And that's the context of the international development. Now about grant management. We as the recipients of grants, grant is about that yielding of finances for a particular cause. How do we understand the process, and how do we see that the process of these funds that we've received is enabling the context that is desired, and that impact we're driving towards? So it's important that we have, it's good to unpack context, unpack topics. So we have the context of value for money, we have the enablers who are drivers of international development, and we have grant management in itself. And Doctor has just given us fantastic context in terms of granting process broadly. So you see, by definition here, the last one says value for money in international development grant management involves the assessment of the lifetime benefits of a grant opportunity against its lifetime cost. A grant opportunity against its lifetime cost. Next slide, please. So we'll move on very, very quickly to talk about the frameworks regarding value for money. Yes, so we have this dimension. And again, like I said, I love to be very, very practical. You have this dimension, which is a global dimension, which of course, a lot of the development practitioners, a lot of the development enablers and actors more or less drive towards this framework and understands this framework when they begin to design the context of value for money and they contextualize it regarding their own organization. Number one is about inputs. And when you talk about input, everything that enables your goal or your target, the quality of your input. And remember, input is not just in the funds, input is not just in the machines, input is also in your staffing, in the human resources, in the ideas. All those things are really, really important. And of course, moving from input to processing to the output that and outcomes and impact, these things surround some key pillars. And the pillars surround economy, the efficiency, the effectiveness, the equity, and sustainability. Like the analogy I was trying to create earlier. If you see a 4-man family member in a rural context now, and they are tending towards making a flour, was a cassava flour, right? because they want to address poverty. And the context of poverty, you talk about SDG Goal 2, right? No hunger, hunger, which has to do with SDG Goal 2. Now they want to address hunger for one night. Impute would demand that, and you've given them 5,000 naira. So what is it that they need to buy more for them to have enough, well enough to make, right, for the four-member family? Should they move ahead in buying, using the old funds to buy meat? Would that address hunger? Should they move ahead in using that to buy the whole of the flour? Would that address issues around nutrition? These are some of the considerations when you talk about the economy and the input. And when you move from processes, what are the things that this is driving to us? And for this family, is it about, do we have a pot big enough to make this water, for this thing to be hot enough for us to make the flour? Do we use of firewood and breaking down and undermining the context of sustainability and deforesting the trees and all that? These are some of the considerations when you talk about value for money. And the output itself, do we keep for tomorrow from the cassava flour we bought from the market? Or do we make the entirety of today, because for now it's about we addressing hunger? And what is the outcome? If we eat today, are we going to wake up tomorrow morning? Is it going to add up to our own nutrition? Are we going to grow? Do we have a baby who needs to grow 1 more inch? Do we have a breastfeeding mother who needs to have quality breast milk? If that thing that we're making today, the cassava flour, is it going to be enough for us to drive towards what is intended as outcome for every member of the family? And that's what we talk about when we drive from input to processes to output to outcomes and to impact. Are we going to grow by eating this for the next 1 week? And equity, do we understand the dimensions of sharing this food that we're making? I love to be very practical with things because that's how I roll, and I hope you understand this. So value for money, remember, it's about the 5,000 naira that we want to use in addressing hunger. Now, there are other contexts that enables the decision for us to drive towards impact. And again, issues around equity. Who takes more? Who needs it most? Who takes the best of the meat? Because of what? Into what dimension? Should it be the woman? Should it be the male? Should it be the baby? Those are some of the things that should be decided when you talk about deciding how to actually buy. Remember, the input, how to define what needs to go into what and where and how. And sustainability, like I said, are we going to use gas? Are we going to use electricity? Are we going to use firewood? To what impact are these things affecting the environment, affecting us as a people? Those are the dimensions as you write your grant. And as you think about value for money, these are the dimensions to think about broadly. And that's what defines the framework of value for money in grant management and the context of grant cycle as it were. Next slide, please. So yeah, next slide, please. So the effectiveness, efficiency, economy, equity, sustainability, more or less. So you see, like I said, yeah, effectiveness, invest in the most impact intervention at an appropriate scale. Remember the analogy with 1 million naira addressing the poverty of 130 million Nigerians who are multidimensionally poor. In itself, that's a scale that is too broad for the context of resources that you have. So you can't be writing a grant and saying, I want to use 1 million naira to address poverty for 130 million Nigerians. Of course, you know that the donor will naturally just laugh at your proposal and just have it, keep it in view, right? Because the context of effectiveness, when married and intersected with value for money, is not speaking to the scale that you've designed or you are prospecting. And that's what effectiveness is talking about. Efficiency. Are you optimally allocating and utilizing the resources through successful and robust grant management processes? So these are some of the things that you think about in your staffing. When you write a proposal, you write a grant, are you thinking of having 20 staff member for maybe a grant of 500,000 naira? You see, in itself, you need to define what they would be coming to do or what process they're coming to manage. By even the definition of what you've even emphasized, as I've even said it, there's a trigger of this is not needed in it. And that's what efficiency is talking about. when you talk about grant management or grant, or when you push to prospect for granting, or when you write proposals to a potential international development partner. Economy, using robust procurement systems and resources to purchase appropriate type of inputs. Appropriate type of inputs. Remember the case study of the Gary, of the flour, of the cassava flour. What cassava flour are you actually enabling? Is it the spoilt one? Is it the one that has fungi in it already? Would this in itself, as you procure it, run towards the enablement that you want to address regarding hunger? Or it's going to add up to even making you guys heal? The family is going to add up to the health issues, and it will trigger other development concerns. Those are some of the things that you need to consider. Pricing is important. However, is it about the lowest of the prices, or about the quality that is intended? This is some of the things that needs to be considered broadly. Equity, like said, eliminate unnecessary, avoidable, unfair, and unjust differences between individuals and groups. This is very important for where the constituency are represent, which is persons with disabilities. Equity is requested, and a broad scale of we development practitioners, particularly in Nigeria, we usually mirror development issues through the lenses of gender, youth, and children, undermining the fact that persons with disability are a cross-cutting group. You have women with disabilities, you have youth with disabilities, you have children with disabilities. I've been there, and I understand exactly what equity, how equity needs to be appropriated. When you write grants in mainstreaming disability inclusion is really, really important. And this is some of the things and dimensions that international partners look forward to saying. When you talk about the Jesse elements, how deliberate are you in mirroring your grant designs or your project designs or program designs to address the concerns of the most underserved communities in the context that you want to address? So this is some of the things that enables a very good and fantastic value for money design of framework broadly when you, of course, intersect it with grant prospecting. Then sustainability, like I said, how sustainable is this? And in the end of, or by virtue of this funding ending, do you have pillars that could sustain, at least for a while, that could sustain the action that is being intended? And how are these your actions impeding or enhancing the environmental, the human, and the economic context that surrounds the ecosystem of your implementation? These are some of the frameworks that we talk about when you talk about value for money. Next slide, please. So broadly, you see these dimensions, and it's really important as you write your grant. You see all those beautiful, beautiful stories that Doctor painted and the beautiful grants that she was calling 200 million, all this. These are things that you could write a fantastic proposal. And from the scaling of your framework of value for money, you could lose out. Like we've just said, from that scaling, you could lose out. And it's really, really important that as you move towards designing proposals that are fantastic to enable human rights, it's important that you have the lens of the framework of value for money. Now, value for money as a concept does not write itself. Value for money as an idea in an organization does not write itself if it's not mainstreamed into the framework of leadership, practice, and the knowledge. And that's what this three concepts is talking about. Leadership must own it. They must write it. They must lead the concept that for any kind of enablement that we're about to enable in this organization, we must have the lens and understanding regarding value for money. Do I need an Uber when I can just walk to the mainstream supermarket that is next door, three doors away? As simple as the decisions that we make in an organization. Do I need to run a diesel engine for so long when, of course, for the context that is needed, I could just switch on, I pass my neighbor generator to just power on my printer and print? Basic things, but this must be said and led and mainstreamed into our daily practices within an organization. It is when you have this as in your DNA that you are able to think through it and put it in your project or program designs and sell it well enough for a donor to take this as a fantastic idea and evaluate your grant or your proposal as acceptable to run with to fund. So that's the conceptualization of framework of value for money. Leadership must own it. Leadership must pass the vision. Leadership must practice it, and mainstream it into everyday action of the organization. Because it is by that doing that you improve knowledge as you have your turnovers and all that regarding staffing, and of course you change your mission from years to years, you drive towards your vision of the organization. The concept and the practice of value for money is totally understood, irrespective of your changes in staffing or mission, because your vision is the same. Next slide, please. So these three pillars, of course, we take us and guide us towards what is needed to be known. And like said, what are the questions that we should continually ask ourselves? What are the questions? Again, Dr. Mina, fantastic presentation. You are excited, you are fired up, you want to write a proposal. You've taken snapshots of all the grants that are available. You want to kick off immediately, but do you have questions that will drive towards you designing a value for money context that will enable your proposal for it to be acceptable? Number one is about the values, the question. Did strategic decision focus on value first? Value first, and in bracket, reaching the right people with the right support for their needs. Reaching the right people with the right support for their needs. The context of intersectionality is very beautiful because it brings everything into one umbrella, right? Gender issues, education issues, poverty issues, literacy issues, disability concerns. A lot of those things are things that you need to think about when you talk about value and reaching the right people with the right support for their needs. And in the context of persons with disabilities, the needs of a wheelchair user is different from the needs of a person with visual impairment. It's different from the needs of someone with hearing impairment. It's different from a need of person. In fact, the different contextualizing the category of those with visual impairment, the needs of someone with low vision is different from the needs of someone who is totally blind. And this is some of the things that should trigger your design for value for money, particularly as an organization. Number two is visibility. Was there proper consideration of the different options? Was there proper consideration? You have one vendor, just one vendor every time, you are always there. And of course, in the informal society sector, if you have one tailor, if before you do it, that tailor will start hitting you hard because you don't know that this person is already increasing the price and you could get the same quality somewhere else. You see, that's the same consideration in the real world of granting, right? Is this visible? Do you have other considerations? Do you have other options? When you do your procurement in your organization, there's always the compliance, like Dr. mentioned, that you must, for certain category or threshold, depending on what your policy says regarding your procurement, you must at least have 3 procurement requests. At least that's the list that you should have. So that's what this is talking about as well. Number 3 is about the risk. Were there the risks associated with each option clear and understood? As you articulate your options, are there risks involved? Do you need to go to conflict reading place or context to get the cheapest resources, even if it is the cheapest and it's of the same quality? But once there is conflict in that context or in that place where you could get the cheapest of the resources or the most appropriate of the resource, is it well enough understood how to mitigate the risk, or you avoid it and move to the next option that has lesser risk? So these are some of the considerations. Are you informed about the decision? Do you have well enough resources that is sufficient in terms of data and information that could inform your decision to maybe go for a resource or go for an option? And again, it's about the cost. Was there sound understanding of key structural and operational factors driving decisions about the cost? Number 6 is about adaptability. Were there opportunities to reassess decisions? Were there opportunities to reassess decisions? So opportunities to reassess decisions. Okay, we have PMS and everything jumped up. And there's a Dangote refinery that said, oh, I now sell diesel for 1,000 naira. You've been procuring diesel for maybe 1,005 for so long, but there's a Dangote that saying, no, I have diesel for 1,000 naira. Do you continue with the 1,005? Or you could just say, okay, let us reevaluate our procurement process and realign towards 1,000 naira. So this is some of the questions that drive towards value for money. Was it transparent, which is the last one? Transparency, and was it clearly communicated for everyone to be carried along, documented, documented, and of course communicated clearly. Communicated clearly. Next slide, please. So this is some of the questions that could trigger our desired value for money. As you write your proposals, beautiful ideas to address and advance lives of course, any person with any kind of category regarding marginalized group, it is really important that you think about these questions as you drive towards the concept of value for money. Next slide, please. So these are important discussions for us to have. Streaming from what Doctor said, and again, fantastic things, fantastic conversations, fantastic triggers for opportunities and all that. But then you need to start contextualizing it. So for us as development practitioners, yes, we know we have our challenges. And number one is about identifying and measuring value or benefit. Which benefits for which populations over what period? These are, of course, some of the things that seems to give a bit of differences. And of course, for our prospective partners, international development partners, they know that we have these challenges as well. So how do I mean? If you are bringing women into the room for any kind of training, and you have 5 women with disabilities, it's expected that their reasonable accommodation is allotted to them. And by reasonable accommodation, it only means the necessary modifications and adjustment for them to equally participate with the rest of the women who are seem not to have disability, because in quote, it's about seeming not to have disability. The definition of disability nowadays, it has moved from those that you can view, which is the visible disability, to, of course, the invisible ones, those with mental and psychosocial disability. So in marrying this together, the extra aids, the extra persons that would accompany person with disability to be in the room, right? When you write your proposal, yes, they know we have these challenges. They understand it. How do you appropriate it? And again, in appropriating it, remember the questions that we already triggered in designing our value for money context. It's about, is it driving towards equity? Is it driving towards efficiency? Is it driving towards economy? Those things, of course, will guide us and, of course, give us what it is that we need in leveraging and surmounting some of these challenges that we are talking about. Now, number 2 is about how to determine the contribution of one actor or one intervention, and finding appropriate external or internal benchmarks and comparison, giving both data availability and comparability issues. So how do you, of course, contribute, bring it, you have a lot of donors, a lot of context and all that. How do you have to appropriate all their dimensions? What's the contribution and all that? Next slide, please. We battle with these challenges as well. But as you walk this journey with the understanding of the frameworks of value for money, then it becomes easier. Of course, you become an expert in designing value for money context that enables impact. So the key point for us as grant seekers, number 1, the purpose of value for money is to drive, and the drive is to develop a better understanding, and of course regarding cost and input, and of course driving towards our choices that are driving towards the impact. Number 2, it doesn't mean that the cheapest things, like we clearly understand, the cheapest things don't necessarily mean you are driving towards quality, right? So that thing, you must always have that understanding at all times. Number 3 is about understanding what works and particular context. If you need to take a flight for you to surmount the risk of crisis, then you need to take a flight. Of course, flights are more expensive than transportation, road transportation. Those things are important for you to have, even as you drive towards value for money. Increased transparency and accountability, like Doctor said as well, is one very critical thing that development partners are very, 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 very deliberate about. Now your staff must understand every context that has to do with for value for money, what to do, where to do it, how to do it, and how to reinvest the learning curves as we move on. Next slide, please. And the context of all these 5 key points for us all, of course, marries together everything that has to do with what we intend to have within our organization. Remember what it said about leadership, about practice, and about transparency and accountability. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Ademefun, for taking us through the journey of value for money and helping us see how best we can ensure that when we are budgeting, when we are planning, we think through what exactly are the needs that we have. At this point, we'll now move to the question and answer session. The way this session will run is, if you have questions, please type them out in the Q&A box. Type your questions out in the Q&A box. We will pick them one after the other and ask our speakers to please respond. When asking your question, you might decide to say, this question is for Mr. Ademefun, or this question is for Dr. Mina Ogbanga, and we'll do all our best to ensure that we can have very quick responses from them. So the first question I'm picking is from Samuel Ajayi, who would like to know how he can position his organization to get timely prompts on grant opportunities, and what are the reliable platforms that he needs to be able to do this. Dr. Mina Ogbanga, do you want to share some thoughts on that? I saw you gave us a list of ongoing grant applications. So is there a strategy that you have for Mr. Samuel Ajayi in 30 seconds?
Okay, in 30 seconds, I want to keep to my Director General's instruction. I think one thing is preparedness. That is it, organizational preparedness. I think it just, if it's only 30 seconds I've been given, I'm going to just likely tell you that, because organizational preparedness is an all-encompassing strategy, in the sense that, one, organizational preparedness in terms of internal controls. Two, because you see, you're being proactive about what a possible donor will require. So you are putting your house in order. You know that when the Bible, Bible enters, but talk about faith. You have not seen it, Abi, but you just feel like that thing will appear. But how do you ensure that it does really appear? By preparing yourself, so that when opportunity meets, when whatever, you see that success comes out of. So one of the things we need to take home is organizational preparedness, intentionality. I teach the principle of intentionality. Be intentional about being prepared, and then putting all those small things in place. You will see that at least you can now say, I'm ready. Where are those grant opportunities? I've shared just within the next past 5 minutes, I shared 40 or 20 opportunities. These are ongoing as of today, to be expired in September. So if you even want to try just one, just don't bother about. Imagine if this man asking this question wins a $1 million grant. Please, just first of all, put my name as number one that will escort you to sign the MOU. But
Yeah, I think we lost Dr. Banga again. The technology isn't working that well today. Maybe also to have that, another strategy is for you to set your Google, open a Google Alert account. If you use Gmail, automatically you have access to Google Alerts. And you can then have the list of all organizations that you may have, researched on that funds work in your area, so that once they publish their grants, Google alerts you, and you can also subscribe to their newsletter. But I do not know whether Mr. Ademefun would also like to respond to that question on how Mr. Ajayi can position his organization to get promptly grant informations. Mina, do you want to mute yourself?
I did not hear what you said, though.
Just mute yourself. I'll come back to you shortly. Mr. Ademefun, please go ahead.
Yes, I think the idea is given already, and thank you very much for those. And they are there. But one thing I usually like to reemphasize is the fact that getting grants might be, or let me say, use the word, could be easy, right? By striving towards the little grants, and of course, metamorphosing into the bigger ones. But then, how do you sustain? That's where the crux of the issue. And that's how do you, at least in a bit of my small years of experiences, I've seen a lot of organizations getting grants and of course not being able to sustain it, right? And that's where I would want to add, right? Please, it's important. Issues around accountability, transparency, these things are critical for us as organization, and make it as part of your culture. And again, like I said, leadership is important. Leadership is important. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Demefun. Leadership, transparency, accountability all helps in being able to sustain yourselves as an organization. Dr. Mina, this question is for you. Thanks, Dr. Mina, for your very insightful session today. I wonder what tips you can share on how to develop proposals for solicited grants, that is, funding that is not advertised publicly in a call for proposal. Thanks, Dr. Mina. That question is directed at you. Do we have Dr. Mina on the call? Is technology helping us this morning again? Dr. Mina, can you hear me?
Is that a question?
Yeah, that's a question
okay,
for you.
I can hear you now. BC, I can hear you.
Yes.
Please,
Mr.
what's the
Aldwell
question?
Adige would like to know what tips you can share on how to develop proposals for unsolicited grants. What tips do you have for that?
Okay, which kind of network is this?
We can hear you,
Jesus.
Dr. Mina. We can hear you. This
I've gone
network
up a
is
bit.
fine. Dr. Mina, we can hear you. Can you hear us? Again, colleagues, please remember that to ask your question, you can type it out in the Q&A box, or again in the chat box. I'll alternate between the chat box and the Q&A. There are some suggestions for Mr. Samuel Ajayi saying you can get on DevX, Development Aid, and Foundation Directory for you to get information. Yeah, resources are already being shared on the chat box. Dr. Mina, can you hear us? Otherwise, someone is saying you can also do funds for NGOs. It costs $49 a year for you to be able to do that. If Dr. Mina, can you hear me? Otherwise, I can quickly move that question to Mr. Demefu. Okay, Mr. Demefu, are you able to pick that question up? Allwell would like to know what tips you have for, putting up or writing unsolicited grant proposals. Any thoughts? Any strategies?
Yes, I think Dr. Miller mentioned some of them. It's important to know the mind of the partner, What is the goal that this funding is expected to address? For instance, Ford Foundation West Africa is about gender-based violence. If you write anything outside gender-based violence, yes, no matter how beautifully written, we probably will not get the funding from Ford Foundation. Right. Now, in terms of the approach, you could use drama, so of course, talk about gender-based violence. Approaches are different. Another thing that I've seen regarding one of the skill set that is largely missing is about diligence and hard work regarding researching. I tell my team there's nothing that is new. It's about your ability to surf the internet, bring it together into a pool, and of course, redesign what it is that is already existing. Be innovative about it. But if you take lesser time in doing your researching, you're surfing the internet, so understanding the issues. If you are, for instance, in supporting your research or your program design, if you are quoting a research of 20 years ago or a data of 15 years ago, whilst we are having a data of a year ago or 6 months ago, that's in itself, you are premising your project design on something that is outdated. So these things are really, really important in winning grants. So it's about diligence, understanding the context and the mind of the donor, and it's about diligence in surfing the right data that is, of course, up to date is really important. And the innovation, the skill to put it together and forge something innovative that, of course, that is aligned with the current trend. One thing that is also important is the mind of national development context in country. So if Nigeria's national development plan is driving towards X, please, your interventions also should also drive towards it, because most foreign interventions or partners usually support the national development plan. So I don't know if this has helped in a bit. Thank you.
Yes, very, very helpful. And thanks for putting the emphasis on the research that is needed in you being able to get the right information. There's something we call grant readiness. It means that one, you have checked that organization, they are funding your area of work. Two is you know when their calls are always out. You have a list of documents that they traditionally would ask for, and you have them ready in a folder. And you have the stories, like Mr. Demefu said, around your work that you already have some. So you're just picking and pasting, and then speaking to many of the questions, umbrella questions that they will ask you. Writing a grant proposal can be both a skill, and also it can be both, it can be fun. But again, like Dr. Mina said, you have to cultivate your donor. All right. Sometimes we say fundraising is friend raising. All right. So there's a lot of techniques and strategies that goes into that. But let me push this question to you, Mr. Demefu. I think I have lost Dr. Mina. And this is from Mr. Yemi Anyaoku, who is asking, do the donors meet in order to confirm that there are no duplication of effort on supported initiatives? Are there also areas where donors might want corrections, amendments, enhancements to existing initiatives, and that these requirements are publicized? Do you want to share your thoughts, Mr. Demefu, on that?
Yes, very big yes. They meet. They have their coalition and everything. They meet every time. They meet every time. And one thing that you maybe we are not very intentional about it is that most times each of these donors, where they define their own mandate, is during granting meetings. You see, if you're part of their grantees, right, you'll see that during their granting meetings, then they dip deeper into some of the conversations that stream or that is streaming from their own international meetings. So yes, the answer is they meet every time. It could seem that they have overlapping mandates or direction. It's not usually the case. There's always one thing that differentiates one donor from the other. It could be the approach, it could be the scope, something, it could be the demography, something is there that differentiates this donor. Yes, to answer you, they meet. And for you to know their mind in defining it, they usually say these things in their newsletters, in their social media updates, their grantee meetings, their annual reports. If you read and you are diligent about the context that they bring out, you will definitely read between the lines. I know their mind.
Excellent. If you read and you are diligent about, these documents, you will know their minds. Thanks so much for those insightful thoughts. On your chat box, you would see an evaluation form being circulated by my brother and friend Geoffrey Hodgie. Please take out time to please evaluate this session so that we can use that to improve and learn more. And I'm sure at some point, colleagues from Sterling One Foundation will jump on this call to tell us how that process would run. Yes, I'm still taking questions. Yeah, feel free to type the questions out in the Q&A and also in the chat box. We've just heard that donors, they do meet. We've heard tips on how to be grant ready for unsolicited call for proposals. But maybe it's just to add that, we've only focused on one aspect of resource mobilization today, which is the grants making side. There are also other alternatives. And I do think that Dr. Mina touched on that when she was talking about partnerships and also collaboration. That is also another area where we need to focus on. But also there are also alternatives, sources of funding that we need to pay attention to, understanding that not all of us will get the grant dollars. Some of the work that we do are not necessarily areas where you get grant dollars. You might have to look at your other sources of fundraising, which might be individual giving and also crowdfunding. And this is where Giving.ng comes in. All of us can use Giving.ng because crowdfunding is an area that resonates with all of our activities as mission-led organizations or as non-profits. We lost Mrs. Kweju Ibekwe at the time. She was talking about Sterling Cares and also talking about Giving.ng. If she's back on the call, we can take her for 5 minutes. Someone has just typed on the call on the chat and is saying that for those who are just starting out as one-man team, what are the best strategies to build an active team without funding? And what is a realistic way to get financial support while simultaneously doing that didn't end? But Mr. Ademefun, I'm just starting out a one-man individual at this time, even though there's nothing like one man, and we'll explain that. What tips do you have on how to work better?
Okay. Well, I think off the cuff, I would say that it begins with you first. If you have a good goodwill, if you have enough goodwill, then you're able to attract people that would volunteer or could volunteer to support your mission. How well are you able to sell it? Your vision, of course. And one thing that I tell particularly undergrads and newly graduated colleagues is that don't shy away from unpaid volunteering. Don't shy away from it, because it could be it has happened. I've seen it. It has worked so many times that it could be the next set of information on your CV that could, of course, spiral you into a very fantastic job opportunity, which employment. So for you just kicking off, please leverage on the opportunities of volunteering, right? But please let this begin from you. You have to be able to sell your vision strongly enough for people to naturally want to gravitate towards it. Then again, in terms of what value can you, of course, sell and add on to anyone that is joining your team. And I've just said that people, if they see that your vision is strong enough and it's something that could also sell them towards another job opportunity, naturally they'll be part of your team. So that's a bit that I could say. Two-way, one is internal, the other is external. Please be able to sell your vision. Number two, be able to earn and have enough goodwill to, of course, attract persons who are looking for the opportunity to even be part of something that's to do with changing the society. Number three, of course, expand your scope towards volunteering and pick out. And the ready pool, of course, will be NYC and all that. And of course, a lot of those kind of job employment seekers, drivers. So I don't know if this answers your question.
Yeah, thank you so much again, Mr. Ademefun. Do I still have Dr. Ogbanga on the call, just to see whether she can add our thoughts as well? But just to add, mine is to say that there's really no one-man team when you start a non-profit, because the law says when two or more. So it means that you would naturally have some steering committee or a board that would be part of the process, and it's the startup phase. Usually, startup phase, it's a bit lonely, but then, like Mr. Ademefun said, once you create a strong volunteer system, and volunteering does not need to be paid. All right, we've defined volunteering as that voluntary way of giving a skill back without expecting anything in return. That's the UN definition. So you must have the skill, you must be willing to give it freely, and that skill is something that we must be able to cost in the market. For instance, I'm able to design websites. I've come to your organization to say I want to help you design these websites, and I'm not expecting anything. Don't give me money, don't give me anything. Yeah, that's when I'm volunteering, because at that point you're able to do the costing for that skill, and you can mention that as in-kind support. Yes, I'm looking at my friend's face, Geoffrey Oji, and I'll let him speak to how Sterling One Foundation supports the ecosystem. Geoffrey, you have my attention, please.
Yeah, thank you so much, Mr. Yebisi, and thank you so much, Dr. Mina and Mr. Ademefu, for the very insightful session that we've had today. I know that the CEO of Sterling One Foundation was speaking to this earlier before she dropped off. So I'll just quickly just reiterate some of the points that she had made, and also speak to some of the things that she wasn't able to speak to earlier. So the first will just be Sterling Cares. She had spoken to it earlier, and that's our free banking solution. Today we have been talking about grants. So imagine receiving grants, and bank charges are eating into the grants that you have received. So that's something that the free banking solution that we have created in partnership with the Nigerian network of NGOs and our financial partner, Sterling Bank Limited. We've created that as a free banking solution, no transaction fees, so that you can continue to do the amazing work that you do in your various communities without having to bother about bank charges and transaction fees. And of course, there is also Giving.ng. Thankfully, Mr. Yebisi just mentioned that today we focused on resource mobilization from the grant side, but there is also crowdfunding, basically leaning into the power of the community, leaning into the power of the crowd, and just getting people to support the work that you do, and also putting in money to help you achieve the goals that you have set out for yourself. So that's what Giving.ng offers. And interestingly, on the Giving.ng platform, we not only help you to gather, would I say, small donations from people, but we also give you what we call the finishing grants of up to 1 million naira. If you reach a certain threshold in the number of donors that you have been able to get funds from within your community, donations from within your community would also support you in some way to continue to do the amazing work that you do. Interestingly, earlier, Dr. Mina spoke about interfacing with donors, building relationship with donors, and that was that's something that we really considered when we were setting up the Africa Social Impact Summit, which is basically a platform for every key stakeholder in the development space. We understand that the civil society cannot do it alone, the private sector organizations cannot do it alone, the government cannot do it alone. So we've created the Africa Social Impact Summit as a platform for every single, would I say, sector, every single player within the development space to come together and say, this is what I bring to the table, this is what I bring to the table, this is how we can synergize. And it's a perfect networking opportunity for the non-profits here on the call and other people that want to meet some of these donors that we've spoken about today, to interface with them, to learn more about what their what their goals are, what their own intentions are. On this call today, we've heard about the fact that we have to align, or there has to be some form of synergy between what your objectives are and the objectives of the donor. So sometimes you can only learn about this when you listen to some of these donors speak about what their own key goals are, and you find points of synergy between that. So I've already spoken to the Sterling Cares platform. To get on the Sterling Cares platform, all you just need to visit is www.sterling.ng/cares, and you can register online, and then someone would follow up with your registration. I've mentioned that you don't need any minimum deposits. You would still be getting your email alerts, no transaction fees, and you still have access to the corporate banking internet platform. And of course, I've also mentioned that we give up to grants of up to 1 million naira for people that come on the Giving.ng platform to crowdfund for some of the projects. This is one of our grantees that is very popular in the Nigerian space. And these are steps for getting the completion grants. First, you have to set up a project that is within any of our key focus areas: health, education, food security, renewables, climate action, and you have to get 100 donors for your project. But if you're a member of the Nigerian network of NGOs, you just need to get 50 donors for your project before you qualify for the grant opportunity that we have on the platform. And this is the ACES platform. We launched it in 2022, and between 2022 and now, we've been able to have representation from over 60 countries. And currently we have registrations from about 40 countries. And the goal for us is just to build effective partnership and also galvanize policy advocacy and more impact investments into the development ecosystem across the continent. So these are some of the previous speakers that we've had. And of course, we're going to be having the Africa Social Impact Summit once again. The third edition is going to be it's going to be starting 1 month from today, the 25th to the 26th of July, 2024. And it's going to be holding at the Eco Convention Center, Lagos. And the theme for this year is Reimagining Progress, a new blueprint for sustainable growth in Africa. So we would like for every one of us here on the call to go to www.theimpactsummit.org, www.theimpactsummit.org, and register to attend. Interestingly, we are also going to be having an NGO dedicated workshop. Last year, we had an NGO dedicated workshop where most of these conversations, we had donors, we had speakers from Coca-Cola Nigeria, we had speakers from Plan International, we had speakers from the Nigerian Skill Project that is sponsored by USAID and managed by Skill by Palladium Group. So this is an opportunity for you to come and put into practice some of the things that you have heard here today, start building the relationships that you need to push your project forward. And we look forward to seeing you in July, seeing you 1 month from now. So thank you so much to everyone that has joined us today. And thank you so much to everyone that has stayed on the call. We really appreciate you taking the time to join us today. And we hope that you take advantage of all these beautiful initiatives that we've created, all these beautiful products that we've created for you. Thank you so much. I will just hand over back to Mr. Yebisi.
Yes, thank you so much, Mr. Hoji, for telling us how your organization, Sterling One Foundation, supports our ecosystem. The day is fast spent, and please again, we have an evaluation form that has been circulated by the comms team. They will recirculate it again so that you complete that for us to get a deep sense of what you expect, what your perception of the session looks like today. Let me at this point thank Dr. Mina Ogbanga and Mr. Ademefu, Adetunde Ademefu, for sharing their very deep thoughts, insights, and foresights on the theme, resource mobilization techniques and strategies. I'm sure we've learned one or two things today. I have learned a lot as well. And we have the next session coming up in the next quarter. But till then, again, let me thank our friends and colleagues at Sterling One Foundation for working with us in this regards. Please do know that all the presentations and videos will be circulated and sent to you via the email that you may have used in registering for this session. Someone is asking, please share the maybe the person wanted the link for the crowdfunding. It is Giving.ng, and yes, someone from the team is typing it in already. For the summit, it is the impactsummit.org, and for the crowdfunding, it is Giving.ng. And also for the Sterling Cares account, I'm sure that would also be shared with you as well. Again, let me thank you all, the over 80 participants that we had at some point, for sitting in and learning a lot. Thanks for all you do across communities. I do understand that it is a tough period, but the more we can put to use all of the things that we have learned, the better for us. Again, my emphasis would be on what Mr. Ademefu said, our ability to do thorough research, to understand what donors are funding, again, thinking through value for money. Also picking that back to what Dr. Mina also said, that we need to do donor mapping, all right? And that we also need to build relationships, cultivate donors. And how do you do that? Outreach to donors. The list of requirements also for opening a Sterling Bank account has been shared by my brother and friend, Oluwaseyi Banjo. So also all the links has also been shared by Mr. Oji. And on that note, let me say thank you again and wish you all the best for the rest of the day and also for the rest of the week. We'll see you again in the next quarter. Bye-bye.